What do you do when the system fails you? When the restraining order is just a piece of paper? When the police tell you to take a picture of your abuser's gun instead of arresting him? Michaela Carter found out the hard way. And her story is gonna make you understand why we need to do better. As a community, as a system, as people who care. The voice you're about to hear belongs to 24-year-old Michaela Carter. She's panicked, breathless, whispering because she doesn't want him to hear her. Listen to this desperate plea for help. This was recorded just 10 minutes after she and her mother had already called 911 about her estranged husband.
911, what is the location of your emergency?
He's here. He's here. She's outside.
Who is outside, Michaela?
My ex, I have an order of protection against him.
He's outside walking around with a gun. We have an order of protection against him, and I'm pretty sure he's looking for my daughter because my niece lives in those apartments.
How do you know this person, ma'am?
It's my daughter's husband, estranged husband. He just got out of jail like last week.
November 15th, 2021, Michaela's estranged husband had just been released from jail after violating probation on a domestic assault charge. That same day, the same day he got out, he took to Facebook. And let me tell you, nobody could have predicted what was about to happen next. Within minutes, police were rushing to reports of a break-in and multiple gunshots at an apartment complex. When they got there, they found a scene that'll haunt you. Michaela had been shot multiple times, but what happened next was even more disturbing. This is the life and death of Michaela Carter. You're watching Shadow Crimes TV, where we bring true crime and domestic violence stories out of the shadows. Subscribe now and join us daily as we uncover the cases that demand to be heard. Don't just watch, be part of the conversation.
I'm scream again. One. It's my birthday!
Michaela Jane Carter came into this world on November 23, 1996 in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Her mama, Kimberly Jones Mbuye, raised her to be the kind of daughter who stepped up. As the oldest of her siblings, Michaela was always helping take care of everybody else. That's just who she was, you know. The family packed up and moved to Antioch, just outside Nashville, Tennessee, and that's where Michaela really started to bloom. At Antioch High School, this girl was doing her thing, fast on the track team and singing her heart out in the youth choir at Lake Providence Baptist Church. Her friends said she had this natural presence about her, whether she was running at practice or singing on Sunday morning. People noticed Michaela. She'd also been baptized at Freedom Temple Ministries, and her faith that stayed with her through everything. After high school, Michaela got herself a job as a server and greeter at the 1230 Club, one of the most popular restaurants in downtown Nashville. Now working in the service industry ain't easy, but Michaela showed up every day with a smile. She took pride in her work because she knew it was helping her support her family and save for the future. And looking back now, it's no wonder she caught the eye of a man who would turn her life into a nightmare. Back in 2007, Michaela met James J. Leggett while they were both students at the same high school in Antioch. At first, their connection seemed innocent enough. Michaela, with all that light and kindness she carried, was drawn to Jay's attention and confidence. He had this way of looking at her that made her feel special, and she welcomed that affection. Girl was young and thought she'd found something real. It wasn't long before they took things to the next level. By 2010, they were officially dating. To everybody watching from the outside, they looked like any typical teenage couple, smiling, laughing, sometimes dancing together at school events or neighborhood parties. But let me tell you something, it wouldn't be long before Jay started showing his true colors. The red flags started small. Jay began showing signs of jealousy. He didn't like it when Michaela talked to other guys, any guys. He became possessive in ways that should have been warning signs, but Michaela was young and in love. She didn't always recognize what was happening. She thought it was just part of being in a relationship. Maybe he was just being protective, right? Girl, we've all been there, thinking jealousy meant love. At first, his controlling behavior came off as concern, but over time it started wearing on her. He would isolate her from some of her friends and get upset if she didn't respond to his messages quickly enough. Sometimes he'd show up unannounced, accusing her of things that weren't even true. And Michaela? She kept most of it to herself. She didn't want to worry her family or come across as being dramatic. She held on to hope that things would get better, that maybe the sweet boy she first fell for was still there, somewhere underneath all that anger. But what she didn't know then was that this relationship would turn into something far more dangerous than she could ever imagine. Moving on to the darker path Jay's life was taking. As the years passed, James's life took a turn that should have been a major red flag for everybody involved. Between 2013 and 2017, this man had racked up several felony convictions. We're talking drug possession, burglary, and robbery. These charges didn't just reflect a growing pattern of violence and instability, they also legally barred him from owning a firearm. Keep that in mind, because that detail is gonna be important later. In early 2020, police got called to a domestic violence situation at the home of Marvin and Elizabeth Leggett, James's parents, in Antioch. This was a quiet neighborhood in southeast Nashville, and that day, Marvin and Elizabeth, both 60 years old, had been trying to remove James from their home while helping him pack his things. But James? He became aggressive with his own parents. According to the police report, he shoved his mother to the ground and slammed his father against a wall. Both parents told officers they wanted to press charges, but those charges never stuck. The case was dismissed later when neither parent showed up in court. When reporters tried to contact Marvin and Elizabeth later, they declined to speak publicly about what happened. But there was one detail from that police report that stood out, and it's chilling. When Elizabeth approached her son during that confrontation, James had allegedly grabbed his father's revolver and pointed it directly at her. He warned her to step back, then fled the scene, taking the weapon with him. Now get this, Marvin Leggett chose not to report the gun as stolen. But here's what's important. Those original charges meant that law enforcement and probation officers knew James had access to a firearm. They had documentation that he had threatened people with it. Whether he ever returned that gun to his father, that remains unclear to this day. Despite all this troubling history, Michaela held on to hope. She believed in second chances. That's just who she was. She'd always been someone who looked for the good in people, and with James she believed love could fix what was broken. So when he got down on one knee and proposed in late 2020, Michaela said yes without hesitation. Her family had their doubts. They had never fully trusted James, but Michaela wanted to believe that marriage would bring stability. That maybe, just maybe, he had finally turned a corner. Girl, if only she knew what was coming next. But the illusion didn't last long. After the wedding, they moved in together, hoping to start fresh. But James's controlling nature, it never changed. It got worse. He constantly monitored Michaela's phone, listening in on her calls, reading through her messages, and even taking her phone away for hours or days at a time, just to isolate her from everyone who cared about her. He wanted to know where she was, every single minute of every day. He discouraged her from spending time with friends or visiting family, often telling her that they didn't truly care about her anyway. They don't really love you like I do, he'd say. Classic manipulation tactics, but when you're in it, you don't always see it clearly. But things would only get worse from there. James started abusing drugs again, and when I tell you this man became paranoid, erratic, and aggressive, girl, it was scary. Then Michaela discovered something that cut her deep. He had been cheating on her, messaging other women behind her back. The betrayal was painful enough, but what came next was even worse. When she tried to confront him about it, the violent outbursts that followed were terrifying. She had actually tried to leave months earlier, packing her things and planning to go stay with her mother. But when James realized what she was doing, he beat her so badly she couldn't even walk. Let that sink in for a minute. Michaela didn't file a police report at the time. Like so many victims, she was afraid of what he might do if she told anyone, and afraid of being judged or blamed. To the outside world, it still looked like they were working things out. But in reality, Michaela was living in constant fear. Her love for Jay was real, but so was the danger. And with every passing day, the situation was becoming harder and more terrifying to escape. Then things took a violent turn that changed everything. In July 2021, Michaela and James had been arguing when, in a sudden and explosive outburst, he struck her with a glass bottle of Jack Daniels. The attack left her bruised, both physically and emotionally. Shaken and scared, Michaela left and went straight to her family's home. That night changed everything because finally she opened up about the emotional torment she had been hiding all this time. She told them everything she had been going through behind closed doors, how Jay had controlled her, isolated her, and hurt her. But then she revealed something even more heartbreaking. She had recently attempted to take her own life. She had tried to overdose, believing that the only way out of this toxic and dangerous relationship was if one of them died. That moment, she said, had been her breaking point. But instead of giving up, Michaela made a choice that took incredible courage. Realizing she couldn't survive much longer in silence, Michaela decided to act. After leaving the hospital the next morning, she contacted police and told them she wanted to press charges against James. Then she filed a petition for a protective order, hoping to create a legal barrier between herself and her abuser. It seemed like justice was finally catching up to Jay, but the system was only beginning to fail her. James was arrested shortly after the incident, but here's where it gets frustrating. The assault charges were dismissed less than 2 weeks later, right before the court hearing. When Michaela found out she would be required to face Jay in the courtroom and identify him herself, she was overwhelmed with fear. She had a panic attack and left the courthouse. Her family said they had reached out to the district attorney's office, warning them about Michaela's state of mind and her intense fear of retaliation. But prosecutors explained that without Michaela's direct identification in court, they couldn't move forward with the case. Make it make sense. The system requires a terrified woman to face her abuser in order to get protection. But that wasn't the end of it. Although the charges were dropped, James remained behind bars, this time for violating the terms of his probation that gave Michaela some temporary relief. At least, in August 2021, she was finally granted a full protection order. The judge made it clear James was not allowed to contact Michaela in any way, and he was legally barred from possessing firearms. But even the strongest piece of paper couldn't stop what was coming next. By then, Michaela was doing her best to rebuild her life, but the fear still lingered. Everyone around her knew that even with a court order in place, James was a man who didn't follow rules, and the danger wasn't over yet. On November 15, 2021, just 10 days after James was released from jail for violating his probation, he began posting alarming messages on Facebook and started calling Michaela, sending increasingly desperate text messages. This man was clearly unraveling, almost as if he were warning the world that something bad was about to happen. And Michaela, she was clearly the target. The danger was closing in fast. It wasn't long before Michaela and her mother, Kimberly Jones, met that placed that first 911 call.
He's outside walking around with a gun. We have an order of protection against him, and I'm pretty sure he's looking for my daughter because my niece lives in those apartments.
How do you know this person, ma'am?
It's my ex-husband. It's my daughter's husband, estranged husband. He just got out of jail like last week. James Leggett. Are they seven people? Yeah, but they have to ask you all this.
What is he wearing right now?
We didn't see him, so I'm not sure what he's wearing. He's outside, and I told my niece not to go back out there.
All right, how did you know that he has a gun?
Yeah, he's 6'6". He's a black guy, brown skin, low cut hair. Not low, but it's a little bit of hair. Yeah, he's really tall.
All right, how did you know that he has a gun?
Because they seen him. He's been posting on Facebook, and he's not even supposed to contact my daughter, but he's been sending her crazy messages.
But you're not sure you're not sure that he's outside because you haven't seen him, right?
Oh yes, I'm sure he's outside with a gun.
But how? But did you saw him with a gun?
My niece did. I'm headed over here now, but I'm kind of scared to go.
What's the name of the apartment?
Outside with the gun.
They had seen James near a relative's apartment, and he appeared to be carrying a gun. Fearing for their lives, they fled and parked at a discount store in southeastern Nashville to wait for police. When officers arrived, they questioned a man who matched James's description. But instead of taking action, they said they didn't have enough evidence to prove he had violated the protection order. And that wasn't the only failure that day. Police didn't activate body cameras. They didn't complete a lethality risk assessment. They didn't offer domestic violence support, all the steps that were required by department policy. Despite Michaela's report and the visible danger she was in, James was not arrested. The officers escorted Michaela and her mother back to the house because she had packed a go bag and needed to grab her ID and the paper copy of her protection order. One officer, who was still in training, walked around the yard as a precaution, but what came next left the family absolutely stunned. According to relatives, police told Michaela that if she ever saw James with a gun again, she should try to take a photo of it. Then they left. Girl, let me say that again. They told a domestic violence victim to take a picture of her armed abuser instead of arresting him. They did offer to help her file a warrant in court, but Michaela declined because she didn't want to miss work. That one decision would cost her everything. Within minutes after the police left, Michaela grabbed her green camouflage backpack stuffed with clothes, a toothbrush, and her protection order, and bolted outside toward her friend's car. Her plan was clear: to get as far away as possible. But when she glanced down the street, her heart sank. She saw James coming fast toward their apartment, a gun in his hand, his face filled with rage. She turned and ran back into the house, shouting, "Ma, he's here, he's here." Her mother, Kimberly, rushed to the window with her phone in hand, trying to do what the police had asked, get a photo. But her hands were trembling so badly that the phone slipped and hit the floor. She picked it up and tried again, but it fell once more. Meanwhile, Michaela was already calling 911 for the second time that day. With panic rising, the two women ran into the bedroom and locked the door. But what happened next would leave behind a memory too painful to forget.
911, what is the location of your emergency?
He's here. He's outside.
Who is outside, Michaela?
My ex, order of protection.
Michaela could be heard whispering to the dispatcher that James was in the apartment area. It was clear she was trying not to let him hear her. Then, within seconds, gunshots could be heard.
What's going on? Michaela, what's happening? What happened? Where is she at?
Help me, Lord.
While Michaela was still on the phone with 911, James broke into that apartment and opened fire, shooting her multiple times before fleeing the scene. Paramedics responded quickly to the 911 call order. Michaela was still alive when they found her, barely clinging to life. She was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, but despite all efforts to save her, the injuries were too severe. Michaela Carter passed away shortly after arriving at the hospital. It was just hours before what would have been her 25th birthday. What made this moment even more devastating was that Michaela had already been on the phone with 911. She calmly told the dispatcher that James was outside with a gun. She begged for help, reminding them she had a protection order. But the dispatcher kept following protocol, asking standard questions for officer safety. Those questions delayed the response by crucial minutes. She had dreams. She had a future, and she did everything right. She filed for protection, she followed the law, she tried to live. But the system failed to protect her when she needed it most. After the fatal shooting of Michaela Carter, James Leggett was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and related offenses. But what investigators uncovered next revealed a deeper failure, one that could have changed everything if anyone had been paying attention. Before Michaela's death, police had already seen those disturbing text messages and social media posts from James. They knew this man was unraveling. Despite all of that evidence, officers told Michaela and her mother that there wasn't enough probable cause to arrest him. Instead, they simply escorted the two women back home and left them there. No lethality assessment was done. No bolo alert was issued to warn other officers. Nothing. Less than 10 minutes after the police drove away, James returned and killed Michaela. Let me tell you, the aftermath sparked a wave of outrage that this city hadn't seen in a long time. Michaela's mother, Kimberly Jones McBee, filed a lawsuit against the Metro Nashville Police Department, claiming negligence. She alleged that officers failed to take Michaela's danger seriously, at times even joking about the situation, and didn't enforce the protective order that was meant to keep her daughter safe. An internal review by Metro Nashville Police found several policy violations. One officer was suspended for 2 whole days. A trainee officer received a formal reprimand. 2 days suspension for a failure that cost a woman her life. Make it make sense. The case triggered widespread attention, and the Carter family's lawsuit eventually led to a settlement of $250,000 in February 2024.
An egregious failure on behalf of Metro Police, and now Metro government is paying a victim's family for a botched domestic violence response that resulted in one woman's murder. Metro acknowledged the error, admitting the officer did not follow proper protocol to protect the victim. Along with improving the policy, Tuesday, council members voted to compensate the victim's family the maximum city payout of $250,000.
But the outcome wasn't just about money. The settlement came with mandatory reforms that should have been in place all along. Things like body camera use during all domestic violence calls, verbal confirmation that support was offered to victims, and automatic bolo alerts for anyone violating a protection order. Kimberly Jones MBI spoke about the settlement, saying,
"We are happy about the policy changes, but of course we do wish that they could have been implemented before November 15th of 2021, the day Michaela was taken from us and the day that we were failed tremendously by Metro Nashville Police Department. These policy changes are only a part of the solution. We need every officer to respond to every domestic violence call with compassion, with empathy, and with intention."
Metro Councilwoman Joy Stiles didn't hold back when she spoke out, criticizing the officer who failed to act and calling for his termination.
I have faith in our police department, but the officer who failed this woman shouldn't be here anymore, and unfortunately he still is. And whatever can be done for that to be rectified, I promise I will be looking into that.
Advocacy groups across Tennessee also joined in, demanding stronger enforcement of firearm laws for domestic abusers and better police training for handling domestic violence situations. But then the case took another shocking turn that'll make your blood boil. Remember that gun James took from his father's house? The one he threatened his mother with during that domestic dispute? According to police, it was the exact same weapon he used to kill Michaela. Despite a court order specifically barring Leggett from having any firearm, he still had access to one, and he used it to commit murder. A joint investigation by ProPublica and WPLN revealed something that should terrify everyone. Nearly 40% of domestic violence homicides in Nashville involved offenders who were legally banned from owning guns. 40%. Tennessee law currently lacks any requirement for abusers to turn over their firearms to police or licensed dealers when they're banned from having them. It's a deadly loophole that's costing lives, and Michaela's case proves it. However, the most shocking revelation was yet to come. James Leggett never stood trial for Michaela's murder. On July 4, 2024, while in custody at Riverbend Maximum Security Institution, he died under circumstances that remain unclear. The Tennessee Department of Corrections launched an investigation into his cause of death, and as of now, that review is still ongoing. So Michaela's family never got their day in court. They never got to see justice served. They never got to hear him held accountable for what he did to their daughter. Michaela's funeral became a solemn testament to a life full of promise as a young woman mourned by her grieving mother, her family, her church community, and an entire city that had failed to protect her. Her passing marked a wake-up call about the systemic failures in protecting domestic violence victims. People finally started paying attention to what advocates had been saying for years, that protection orders are often just pieces of paper unless there's real enforcement behind them. From Michaela's tragedy, real life-saving policy changes emerged, but our vigilance must continue because her story isn't unique. There are women in our community right now living in the same fear Michaela experienced. There are women right now calling 911, hoping someone will take them seriously before it's too late. Don't wait for another tragedy to spark reforms. Spread awareness about domestic violence. Support legislation that closes loopholes allowing abusers to access firearms. Stand with survivors in your community. Her legacy reminds us that protection orders must mean real protection, not just pieces of paper that give victims false hope while their abusers walk free. Michaela Carter was 24 years old. She had dreams of hosting community events and giving back to others. She worked hard, loved her family, and tried to build a life. She did everything the system told her to do when she was in danger. She filed reports, got a protection order, and called police when she felt threatened. And the system failed her in every possible way. But her story doesn't end with her death. Every policy change that came after, every officer who now has to turn on their body camera during a domestic violence call, every automatic BOLO alert that gets issued, that's Michaela's legacy. That's her voice still fighting to protect other women. We can't bring her back, but we can make sure her death wasn't in vain. We can demand better from our police departments, our courts, and our legislators. We can speak up when we see the warning signs. We can believe women when they tell us they're in danger. And we can remember Michaela Carter not just as a victim, but as a young woman who deserves so much more than the system gave her. Thanks for watching. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We bring you true crime stories daily, cases you know and ones you don't. Stay with us as we shine a light on shadowed stories that need to be heard, because every victim deserves to have their story told.